Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I am excited to review this here. This is essentially Telcoin. We're looking at the technical analysis for Telcoin. Now, we don't ever really look into the fundamentals. If you have knowledge on that, please go ahead and give us some insight in the comments below. But what I want to do, of course, is just dive deep into the technical data, help you find a good entry point, and maybe best practice for climates like this when the price shoots straight up and we're trying to figure out what to do next. Okay, so stick around for that. Also, no, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. Always do your own research. There's also $25 in unclaimed Bitcoin from Voyager, link in the description below, as well as a link to our Telegram community where you can essentially get engaged and communicate with the likes of myself and just learn as much as you possibly can. We're all in this together, so let's make sure to learn and grow as one. Okay? So without further ado, let's go ahead and check it out. Let's get to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Telcoin, see what's going on there. And just before we do, I always like to look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first to just kind of see what's going on there, just to help us understand the big picture on all the market, because Ethereum has a very large blockchain. A lot of coins are on the Ethereum network, and Bitcoin, of course, kind of controls the market and tells the price what to do in a lot of cases. So I like to kind of draw that comparison. We'll look at that first. So looking down at, see here, Bitcoin. First thing to note is that the last 24 to 48 hours has been interesting. I think we've all experienced that with the prices kind of jumping up and down. But simply put, we've got a very major resistance and support level at 57,000. That's where this purple line is. That is essentially the 200-day moving average. Now, the 200-day moving average has historically been a very strong support and resistance line for Bitcoin. So right now, we're currently trending above that. We have been for the last 12 hours. So hopefully it continues to hold above and stay above and shoot upwards instead of what we saw recently with a significant retracement from 58,000 down to 53. One last good little silver lining here is that the support level of 53,300 is still holding, and that's been holding for some time with a small variance, but we're looking to be in pretty good shape here. Okay, that's another reason why we see some increase in price, right? That's kind of nice. Ethereum, very similar in the sense that it hasn't done a lot. As you can see, it was ramping up really strong, but once Bitcoin decided to slow things down, pump the brakes, you can see right here the indecision there, because a lot of times people jump from Bitcoin to Ethereum, so you see Bitcoin sell off, jump to Ethereum, Bitcoin sell off, jump to Ethereum. It's kind of doing a little back and forth right now, but it did test its all-time high and break that of 35.25, and the current all-time high is right around 35.50. It's right in that range. So that is Ethereum. So let's go ahead and take another look. Let's take a closer look rather at Telcoin. So what I like to do first is I like to look at the one-day charts and go work our way down to the 4-hour, 15-minute, etc. Just kind of see what's going on from the big picture, bird's eye view, all the way down to a cellular level. Okay. So as we can see here, a nice little spike up again. That's cool. First of all, let's take a look at the one-day chart. Now this is what you want to see if you are invested, right? This is a pretty awesome sign. So, what was it? It was down to 0.0085-ish, right in that range, only about 4 days ago. Let's see what kind of increase in price that is. So let's go from here. So in 6 days, we've seen an increase of approximately 325%. That's pretty huge. Yeah, that's a lot. So good for whomever was invested in Telcoin prior to that spike. I bet you're having a great day right now. That being said, let's figure out a good action plan, but before we do, we want to go ahead and take a look at just a couple of indicators. Now this is the one-day chart. This doesn't matter a ton, but the RSI is overextended. It's been above 70, which is usually the cutoff point for feeling comfortable without taking profits or essentially pulling out your position. You're looking at what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days over 70. So just know that there is likelihood of this price coming back down. Obviously, we'll look at better charts to kind of see with the smaller time frames to go see what's going on. But generally speaking, for the most part, in cryptocurrency, I've noticed that when prices jump up and they go on a rampant tear, I've noticed that 5 or 6 days is like the max without seeing retracement. Now, good news is there was a retracement here on the, what was that? That's the 2nd? no, sorry, the 4th. So yesterday we saw a retracement. That's a good sign. It calmed down and ramped back up again. It could mean we could get more longevity out of this this total here, this new run, I guess you could say. But it's hard to know. Needless to say, the 50-day moving average doesn't matter at this point. If and when the price does come down, just pay attention to see how the price reacts to the 50-day moving average. Again, not super important on the 1-day chart, more so on the 4-hour chart. So let's take a look at that. This is the the moving average I like to look at the most because it was working as a resistance and now it's a support. It has been for some time, but this moving average will continue to come up. They'll eventually intersect, and at that point we want to see if it continues to work as a support or if it becomes a new resistance. So just pay attention to that. Also note too, the RSI on the 4-hour chart has been overextended for some time. Really doesn't matter when we have this type of bull runs, because with this amount of volume, there's really nothing that can stop it until it reaches its exhaustion period, right? There's going to be a point where the bulls get exhausted and tired of that, and it slows down. Usually you see that after about 4 or 5 days of just straight constant bull runs. But this did take a little breather here, so to speak. And again, on the 4th, we saw a lot of consolidation, and now another ramp back up. So what I'm venturing to guess will happen once this plateaus and starts to reach its peak, we'll see likely another consolidation period followed by a major breakout, which would either be up or down. Now, it's hard to forecast that just yet. There's not enough really in the patterns to identify that, but we should probably expect for the price action to kind of taper off eventually soon, and then to kind of level out, I guess you could say. So we should probably see that happen again. Either way, that's the 4-hour chart. That's what we're looking at there. Let's go ahead and go over to the 15. This is where I like to focus the most, just based on trying to find a good entry point, because the 15-minute chart really tells us a lot. And for starters, this is a good sign. The fact that it's making higher highs right now is one thing, but the great thing about it is the price isn't overextending itself too far outside of the VWAP lines. These are the green lines here. So when you see these VWAP lines, the top line is kind of a resistance level, and the bottom would be a support above and beyond this. So in other words, they are, and if you go to the settings here, you'll see they're standard deviation bands. Okay, so there's a standard deviation up and down. So it can only go so far without rejecting. So anytime you see the price go above this VWAP lines, it'll have a tendency of essentially correcting itself. Okay, so what's good about this, and this is what I like about it, is it doesn't have such a super large variance above and beyond that. It's staying consistent, and you can see this with the RSI too. See right here where the RSI got too high and it got up to about 83. It was above these VWAP lines, so that it was too high of a standard deviation, so the price corrected itself eventually. Okay, so it can only go so far out of this line for so long, so pay attention to that. I like the fact that the price has been pretty consistent minus this one spike here, and it's been holding underneath the upper band, which is a very good sign. And also too, keep this in mind, it's also staying under the RSI of 70. So even this little part right here, which did retrace a little bit, it's staying for the most part as close to 70 as possible. So when you see higher highs and the RSI is under 70 the entire time, it's a very, very good sign. It doesn't mean, it means that there's there's a lot of momentum that's consistently happening, but it's not going to adversely impact the price action, because it's going to continue to move in that direction as long as it doesn't push up too hard. So if we see one of these again, I would get a little concerned. If we see a very, very large 15-minute green bar in the near future, then I would expect for the price to retrace, if nothing else, come back down kind of like we saw here. So anyways, just consider that. Try to think of that. Anytime you see the RSI under 70 and it's consistently making higher highs, that's actually a very good sign. It means the bulls are in control. The bears are fighting them off somewhat, but they're kind of conceding and allowing it to happen. So it's going to continue to do this likely until the RSI is too high. Now it is creeping up over 70 right now, so pay kind of close attention to see what's going on there. If it does continue to trend upwards and stay above, then that might be a cause for concern. So for right now, I kind of like the way things are going right now. So that's what I see on the 15-minute chart. So some pretty good indications here. Let's take a quick peek at the 5-minute chart. essentially the same thing. You see this nice little step up here. Price is trending up above the VWAP lines, which is good too. We want to always keep that consistent. Also, if you're wondering, why is this VWAP line kind of closed right here? Well, at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, essentially 1700, every day it resets, for lack of a better term. So the way that this is set up, if you go back to 1700 on the previous day right here, you'll see that this VWAP line also closed and reopened essentially. So it's interesting how the volume weighted average price works. It'll reset itself once every 24 hours because it's based on the average volume in the last 24 hours, right? To determine the consistent price, which is essentially a support and resistance line. So this red line you see here, if the price were to come down and touch that, it would work as a support level. So if you see right here, this is how it worked. So it came down, retraced, bounced off the VWAP, and then continued back upwards. So it's kind of a continuous support level that is, in my opinion, one of the most reliable indicators in there. Now these upper and lower bounds can be, I wouldn't say inconsistent, they're not foolproof, but they work kind of like moving RSIs, if you will, right? So you see this little peak right here, peaked up over, it's essentially too high of an RSI, right? So you can kind of use them both in combination and get a really good understanding of where the price action is and if it's moving too high or too fast. So just pay attention to that as well. But for me, if I were to take entry in this climate right now, I would be cautious. I would be careful because again, there's consistent momentum. RSI isn't overextended, but right now it does appear to be kind of coming up a little higher. I know that's the 5-minute chart. Let's go back to the 15. But I would, I'm more risk averse, right? So I prefer not to get into a coin like this at this late in the game. That's just my personal opinion. There's a good chance that you could get in right now. It could continue to go upwards, right? But eventually it will reach exhaustion, and it has been pushing up, again, 5 of the last 6 days. So to me, when I see that happen, that's like, okay, I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm going to let it calm down, let it chill out. And once it starts establishing its own support and resistance levels and works itself into a channel, that's when I prefer to take action. Because I like, 1 to 3% gains, 3 to 5% gains. A lot of people in cryptocurrency are like, all in all the time. They want to get a 25% win and they're okay with a 30% loss. I don't care for that. I don't like that. So this honestly is not a consideration for me. I'm not even going to touch this until it reaches its peak, it retraces back down, and it bounces off the VWAP, and I get my confirmation I'm looking for. Okay, so please just be cautious, be careful. I'm not telling you this is a bad scenario. Honestly, the fact that the RSI is still under 70 and it's not picking up over those upper and lower VWAP lines, I think it's a pretty good sign right now. So there's a good chance it could continue. But just be careful. If you're going to take entry right now, and you just want to get a small piece of the action, put a small piece into the action, right? So go ahead and add a 15 to 20% position. Okay, that way if it does reverse on you, you're not going to be out arm and a leg, and if it does continue upwards, you can add to your position. Okay, that's how I always like to do it. Never go all in. If you're new to the channel and you haven't watched my videos yet, I'm a firm believer on never going all in unless you know for a fact that this is something you're going to hold on for a very, very long time. If you're holding on for 1 year or later, or longer if you will, then sure, go all in. It really doesn't matter when you get in. If that makes sense, right? Because you're going to get the growth, you're going to get what you want out of it in the long term. It'll eventually swing in your favor if you give it enough time. It's kind of the natural nature of it, as long as it's a good product. But if you don't go all in, and you're not considering going to the moon and back in a few years, then be careful. Put in only what you can afford to lose, and don't go all in, because there's nothing worse than it hitting its peak right as soon as you go in, because you're extremely happy and excited about what's going on, and then you get those stages of fear and contempt, and it's a terrible feeling. I've had it so many times in the past, and I'll never do it again. That's why I try to teach good practice, best practice here. So I hope you can understand that, because this is not, this isn't a game. It's a marathon. It's not a race, right? You don't need to have a tremendous gain every single day. If you shoot for 1% gain every day, your wallet will grow exponentially over time. And it's going to be a much happier, rewarding position when you're enjoying your life at the end of each day instead of just making that massive regret. And again, with age comes wisdom and all that stuff, but just take it from me. I've learned a lot, and I want to make sure that you learn a lot. And I just hate to see anybody have to feel the way I felt before with that terrible gut-wrenching feeling. Anyways, enough about that. I hope and wish you the best of luck on this entry here. If you're to take one, just be very careful. Wait for confirmation at all times. That's my personal opinion. Do not take a large position, and if you do take a large position, plan to hold on to it for a very long time, and be okay if you take a loss and you see the price reverse on you, because it can and will happen in this climate. Just be careful, okay? All right, so thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and liking, of course, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see ya.